G'day, guys. Welcome back to Stat Chat Sports here for another AFL preview. Of course, we're talking the Sydney Swans today. It's our fifth-ranked team. I'm here with Tazza. I'm here with Stat Chat BT after a couple of weeks in the twos. Good to have you back on board, BT.
It's always good. It's always good to be back. I love doing this shit.
Absolutely, and we're glad to have you on board. Tazza, we're talking Sydney today. Didn't quite sneak into the top four after making the grand final last year. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's surprising. I had him there, but I can see that grand final loss could scar. I mean, these things happen with these teams. They can show a bit of I don't know, a drop off in form or just scarring from seasons past. But it's a team. It's a young team that should get better organically. They don't need the extra pieces. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting team, this one.
Yeah. And we are stat chat, of course. We have been accused of not delivering too many stats over the course of our previews, but the stat for you today, teams losing by 40 or more points in the grand final since the year 2000. Sydney is the 11th team for that to happen. The 10 teams previous, only one of them went on to win a final the following season, and 6 of them didn't make the finals at all. So that's where I think we're getting at, Tazza. Typically, there is a slide when you get spanked in the grand final, and BT, you've done the research on this team. Do you think there's going to happen again this year?
Yeah, I think there's just too many teams, I think, who are just above him. They could easily maybe just be 1 or 2 games outside that top 4, but I think there's these 5 or so other teams around them who may just tip them. They're still a very good side, and I still think they're going to be very good in the future. But I think at this stage, I think they peaked a little too early with what their list is.
So the off-season storyline, we've mentioned, of course, the shellacking in the grand final. If you're a Swans fan, we won't talk about it anymore. We absolutely promise. But really, it's because there's not much else to talk about, Tazza, from the off-season. This team didn't do a whole lot, but typically they don't. They typically aren't super active in the trade period. Same again this year.
Yeah, no, they've done a lot of their shaking and moving, I suppose, in the last couple of draft periods, and that's what their growth and what their moving forward. They need to see their growth out of their draft picks. We're looking at the young guys like McInerney, Goulden, Dylan Stevens, those kind of guys. They need to take that next step if Sydney are probably to progress into that top 4 and have another shot at the flag. But which is fine. I mean, they've drafted beautifully, and sometimes that organic growth, like I mentioned before, is the way forward. You don't want to be adding too many random pieces. But yeah, it's all. You don't have to bring in players in the draft period, in the trade period when you're drafting well.
Yeah, I think they've got a good young core, like you said, and I think this team probably overachieved a bit last year, BT. We saw the rise, but I think we thought this young team was probably a couple of years off. So certainly done really well. But I mean, that's the reason for optimism, really, isn't it, BT? I mean, this is a young team, and you'd have to say that they're only going to get better over the years to come.
Yeah, exactly. And the players they lost in the offseason were the older players. They went from the 6th oldest team to the 14th oldest team now, just in this one offseason. So there's definitely a future there for this team. They just peaked a little too early, in our opinion, in all of our opinions.
All right, medical room wise, because we are obviously in the preseason and we're only a few weeks out. We're like 2 weeks to go, fellas. How exciting is this? So we'll take a little bit of a look at who is, I guess, potentially not in the frame for round 1. And Taz, I think it's probably Nick Blakey is probably the big one over the off season with the glandular fever. But is there a chance he might be back round 1?
Yeah, the lizard. Yeah, glandular fever's been one of those ones that it's knocked players out before. It's really set them back quite badly. I think Will Phillips from North had the same thing, and he basically missed all of last season. Highly touted and just couldn't squeeze into that squad due to glandular fever. So it's one that we could see hold him back, but I think he'll be back. I don't think it's on the extreme side, so hopefully we'll see him because the pace that the lizard gives them is It's pretty important. They love the ball in his hands off halfback.
He's a handy player. And BT, I think the ruck situation also one to watch. They've got a number of guys that have had interrupted pre-seasons. Hickey, Laddams both didn't play in the pre-season game last weekend. So Amity as well. He's got a hamstring cloud. So the ruck situation, interesting one coming into round one.
So, yeah, from what I read earlier today, looks like Hickey's missing round 1. So he may be back in round 2 or 3, but it looks like he's not going to get up for round 1. So obviously that's a huge loss. But yeah, that looks a bit of a problem for them going into earlier in the season.
So our regular segments that we like to do for every team, BT, straight off the top. We're looking for an all-Australian chance. And what we like to do here at Stat Chat Sports is not pick the low-hanging fruit, okay? We like to go with some off-the-wall picks. We like to go with something that you wouldn't expect. And BT, you're probably the loose cannon of this group. You are a man that likes to go absurd and you like to go with big calls. And I'm hoping that your all-Australian pick is in that vein.
Well, this kid, he's going to be an absolute star. He's going to be a multiple Brownlow medalist.
Oh,
that's what he's going to be. He delivered the ball to Lance Franklin for his 1000th goal. We're talking about Chad Warner.
Chadwick.
He made the 40-man squad last year. He's making the 22-man squad this year.
Yeah, I like this pick. I mean, this guy is an absolute jet. What is he's 21.
Yeah, 21.
As Tazza says, definitely on the right side of 25. I mean, this man, Tazza, you got some words about him because he really broke out last year and he's got all the makings of just one of the primo mids, inside, outside. He's got pace, he's got nous, he gets it done.
Look, I'll make one more mention of that grand final, but he is the only Swans player that could think his head up high from that game. He was huge, and I mean, I think it was 2 goals and almost 30 disposals. I think roughly. So I mean, he had a huge effort, and he dragged that team. If he wasn't there, who knows what the Cats could have done to that team because he played a lone hand there. But yeah, absolute star. And yeah, we like to say that a lot of players will win Brownlows, but Warner's a genuine shot. He's a gun.
You'd have to say that Brownlows on this channel are just sort of like merit award certificates. You know, we're just dishing out left, right, and centre.
We do.
They're like the Hungry Jacks voucher you was getting under 10s. Yeah. You can have one. You can have one. Off you go.
Well, banking off his last year's stats, he only averaged 23 disposals over the whole season, but he's only gone over 30 twice. So if he can bank that up to the 28 and hit those 30 marks maybe half a dozen times to 10 times or so in the season, that's going to push him into that All-Australian squad.
And you'd have to think he's getting a lot of midfield minutes. I know that Kennedy didn't play a whole lot of games last year. But I mean, Taz, do we see like Parker sort of phasing out of the rotation a little bit? Rowbottom, Goulden potentially getting a bit more time in the middle as well as Mills. It's an interesting mix.
Yeah, Rowbottom's one for me. I think he sees a lot more. He'll see a lot more CBAs, a lot more midfield time. Parker, he's still handy in there. They still need him in there. I think they still need an old head or a wise head in there, and he's very effective up forward. He's just a gun wherever he goes. But yeah, I think the mix is kind of Warner, Rowbottom, Parker, and sprinkle in a bit of Goulden. And I'm not sure if Patley spends any more time in the midfield. I think he's just a forward. That experiment probably needs to end. But yeah, there's a few names that they can throw there.
Yeah, they've got terrific depth, and I think all those mids as well, they can play in other positions, which I really like that, a good versatile mix in the midfield. So, yeah, nice one for your All-Australian chance there, BT. Back it up here. Breakout player. Obviously not going to Chadwick, but I'm looking for someone special here.
Well, Taylor just mentioned him. I'm going Rowbottom. He had
I knew I'd do that.
Had a bit of
as soon as I said it.
Bit of a breakout season last year, but I think he can go to the next level. He's an absolute gun, this guy. He's ranked 5th in the comp for tackles last year.
Ooh.
Alongside Callum Mills and Brayshaw. He equaled with those two. Obviously, quality names there. He only averaged 18 disposals over the whole season. So he can easily push that up. If what we were talking about previously, if a Parker pushes to forward more and he's spending a lot more minutes in that midfield, he get those up to your 23, 24. He's never had a game over 30 disposals, not
That's
one.
a stat. I
There
like
we
that.
go.
Wow.
I went over all of his games. He's only 23 years old. It's all there for him. He knows he's right there under the umpire's nose. He can tackle. This is going to be a big season for him.
I like that. That's a good shout. And there's so many guys to choose from for the Swans, honestly. They have a lot of good young players through there. They're all coming through at the right time. Obviously, we predicted a little bit of a slide, but they're certainly in the right direction, I think. So nice call on Rowbottom. And last segment that we like to do for every team as part of these season previews, a player under the pump. Usually we're picking a guy that might lose his spot in the team, might be on the wrong side of 25, but I'm interested to see where you're going with this one, BT.
Now, this guy is on the wrong side of 25. The journeyman, Tom Hickey, 31 years old. Contract ends at the end. His contract ends at the end of this season. He's injury prone. They've got these young fellas coming through, Lachlan McAndrew, who's looking like he'll play round one.
Yeah.
You got Peter Laddams, who's obviously a good age. He's just injured at the moment. Hayden McLean, and there's the young fella, Will Edwards as well, who's only 19 years old. They've got these Ruckman coming through. Amadi as well. He's another one. I just can't see him. I think this may be his last year in the comp.
But I think he would know that. So I don't think that means he's under the pump. I mean, as you said, Hickey's a bit of a journeyman he's just going along for the ride. So I don't think he's under the pump.
But I think even if he plays the season, I can't see him they're going to put the work into these younger guys. You would think. I can't see him playing many games this season. Even if he is not injured, I think they're going to put the time into a Laddams or one of these younger fellas.
I'm not going to lie, Tazza. I think this is a stinky call. Can I throw one out? Just quickly. This isn't how we normally do it. We usually give it to one man and one man only to sort of do the research. But Tazza, I'm going to throw out a guy which I think AFL fantasy fans, Supercoach fans know who this guy is because they've had him in their fantasy team at some point over the last 3 years. And it's Will Gould. This guy, he's...
The young fella.
He's what? He's 22. He's never debuted. He was like a first-round pick, halfback flanker, big, stocky lad. I mean, Tazza, why is this man not in the team?
I mean, he's a myth. To anyone that hasn't actually seen him in person, he's a myth. I don't even know if it's real. Every year, it's he's going to be the cash cow. I mean, that's AFL fantasy terms. He's the cash cow, and we never see a single minute of him. So yeah, I mean, he's a guy that definitely needs to break through, and I'm sure this has to be his last shot. They must see something in him. This is his fourth season.
He's the definition of a brick shithouse. He's 191, 98 kegs as a back
big
pocket.
fella.
Look at this rig. I don't know if you've seen. There's a really good Facebook page out there. It's called Truck Hunting. Go and have a look at it. And they just post pictures of big rigs, like real big units. And this man, I reckon, he is a truck. He is an absolute unit, and he's got to get some time in the ones. He didn't even get a run in the twos last weekend in the preseason game. I don't know what's going on with this guy. So, BT, I'm sorry to hijack your segment, but I think the Gould, the truck.
I think it's a bit hard. That's a bit harsh. Someone who hasn't even played a game, they can't really be under the pump. You could really list. There's 22 other, let's say 15 other guys who haven't played a game in the squad. I know he's been there obviously a few seasons, but I didn't want to be a bit harsh. I was also looking at Logan McDonald, not going to lie. But he just signed a contract, so I was like, it's a bit hard there. He obviously has, but I think he needs to improve as well. It was between him and Hickey, but I think Logan McDonald definitely needs to improve and find a way to kick more goals.
Yeah, and I think he's got his fitness base up, and obviously with Buddy in the team, that is a big presence, and you want to be taking as much as you can from the big fella, but he's just got to really come out into his own and stamp his authority on games this season because he hasn't been able to do that. So, yeah, nice call. But I think it's good that there's a few options here. There's not just one guy that we look at and go, yeah, no, under the pump. Yeah, he needs a big year. We know that he's on the line. There's a few options here, which I think is a good thing. So if you're a Swans fan and you've got a theory on someone that's under the pump, let us know in the comments below. If you're not happy with where we've ranked them, because we've ranked them 5th, and this is coming off a grand final season last year, let us know in the comments as well. Always happy for the feedback. We've been getting some really good feedback as well in the comments. BT certainly is the people's champion at the moment. People loving the work from BT, as well as the rest of the crew. So let us know in the comments below. Let us know what your thoughts are. Aside from that, we're into the top 4 from our next episode, which is coming your way in 2 days' time. Really exciting, fellas. The season's getting very close now. Can't wait. Stay tuned for more.